Hello everyone and welcome to the Belt and Road Face to Face.
First of all, I think the overall scale of participation is very impressive, despite of the COVID-19 situation and impact.
So I think if the Pakistani cherries come to China, Chinese people, they love cherries.
Let's say Spring Festival or whichever festival, it is always associated with different kind of foods.
The only thing that we need to do is creating the awareness and a very good marketing, a strong marketing.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Belt and Road Face to Face. Our program is co-produced by China Economic Net and Vash News Television. And I'm Zoon Khan from China Economic Net, and today I am pleased to be joined in our studio by Cheng Wei, who is Country Manager of Habib Bank Limited in Beijing. And we also have with us Dr. Sajid Khurshid, Department Head at Canadian International School of Beijing and also visiting faculty at Tsinghua University in Beijing. Let's start the first part of our program, Hotspot. The China International Import Expo, the CIIE, is the world's first import-themed national exhibition so far. The third China International Import Expo is held in Shanghai on November 5th to 10th, 2020. The total exhibition area of the expo is nearly 30,000 square meters, larger than that of the previous expo, with 6 exhibition areas covering food and agriculture products, automobiles, technical equipment, consumer goods, medical devices, medicine and healthcare, and service trade. At the same time, as China's all-weather strategic partner, exhibitors from Pakistan also displayed products in a variety of fields, including wood carving, jade, jewelry, blanket, leather, and pink salt. Besides, China-Pakistan joint venture specialized in logistics and anti-counterfeiting also participated. So first, let's come to you, Ms. Cheng Wei.
Yes.
You visited this year's CIIE.
Yes,
You are a partner in CPEC in many ways. You're involved with ventures to do with Pakistan.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about this year's expo and how it impressed you?
Yes, I personally visited the CIIE. I think the things impressed me are as follows. First of all, I think the overall scale of participation is very impressive, despite of the COVID-19 situation and impact. I think the CIIE was able to have the exhibitors from 172 countries and regions. I think the number of exhibitors are around 3,600. So that is a very good number when you think about that this year there are different impacts because of the COVID-19. So the second thing I think I personally felt impressed was the adoption of new technology to tackle the COVID-19 prevention measures. There you will see that when you were actually participating in the exhibition, from the way that you're registered and you come onto the site and you went through the whole area, you actually felt the new technology adoption was impressive, such as the AI technology, such as the big data, how your health conditions are actually being tracked. So I think that's a very good kind of signal that displaying to the worldwide that China is coming up with a new technology, and these are actually integrated into the daily life and how the country is being run.
And I think many people outside China cannot even fathom exactly how it's implemented.
Yes, absolutely. The third point that I would actually highlight is also the inclusion in terms of the Belt and Road countries' participation in the CIIE. I think out of the 172 countries, around 47 countries are actually having an overlap with the Belt and Road initiatives. And out of the 47, 30 plus are actually from the least developed states. So that is a very clear message that China wants to demonstrate to the world that China is a huge market.
You know that medical goods have been traditionally exported from Pakistan to China,
Yes.
also textiles.
Yes.
But there are other industries, other sectors that can be enhanced.
Yes.
And we have seen some divergence, diversifying actually of
Yes.
exports to
Yeah.
China. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes, I think when we look at the trade relationships between the two countries, we'll have to think of a very important progress that has been made by the two countries of launching of the second phase of free trade agreement. We call it FTA. The FTA under the second phase, I think from China's side, China has given the tax concessions or exemption of the import duty to about over 300 types of taxable items from Pakistan. Now, when you look at the types of products that can be included under these categories, they span from traditionally some of the mineral products and to agriculture sector, to cotton yarn, to garments, to leathers, and some other related products that Pakistan has been medical are one of them.
Okay.
So I think the way that we can as a next phase, once the FTA as a framework is being built there, and then it's up to how the industry players that we will have to, and together with the banks, because we'll have to be there to make sure that the trade finance products and services are there to cater for their needs. I do think that RMB will play a very important role in that entire journey. I have been associated with the HBL for many years. I do feel happy and to see that HBL has become the first bank and the only Pakistani bank who can set up a branch operations in China. And we do look forward to working very closely with the industry players from both countries, so that we can further build up the trade relationships.
So Dr. Sajid, we know that, just as Ms. Chung mentioned, that there has to be a whole process to facilitate businesses, and banks play an incredibly important role. But at the same time, our exporters, especially I think the agriculture industry, has a lot of potential. Pakistani cherries are very famous in Pakistan. They're of high quality, and next year the first batch is expected to arrive in China. Do you think there's potential in this market?
Yes, definitely there is a huge potential. As we just talked about the expo, there are agriculture-based stalls, and where the people they are representing their products. Ms. Li Wei, a business representative of the International Trading Company, she mentioned that she is getting the first batch of the cherries will be arriving from Pakistan to China next year. And the problem was the cold storages. So what the China is offering, the cold storage facilities and all these kind of infrastructure, and the Pakistani will provide the manpower. So in that case, that we are getting both the win-win strategies, and it's a win-win situation for both the countries. So I think if the Pakistani cherries come to China, Chinese people, they love cherries. And whenever I go to the fruit shops, the cherries are all there. It's a Chinese one, and then there's imported from different countries. Bit expensive, but the Pakistani cherries is juicy, and it's a very good taste, in fact. And I think if it's arrived here, its taste developed by the Chinese local market is a huge potential, that's for sure.
Can you give some advice to our viewers, because a lot of our audience is from Pakistan? How can we brand Pakistani fruits like cherries? How can we create this association among Chinese people? When they think cherries, they think Pakistan. What can be good advice to follow for them to actually be able to meet some success in this market?
I think that's a very good question. As we know that now, it has not become a public knowledge that Pakistan produces very good quality of the cherry. For us, I had the luck because I work extensively with the Pakistani communities. So I think next year is going to be a Pakistan-China diplomatic relationship, 70 years celebrations. I think if cherry can become, because with the FTA, everything I go back to the reason I repeatedly go back to FTA is that is the basic framework, how both countries will have to enhance trade relationships. So agriculture products is going to be a very important sector of that. Even from a CPEC perspective, the phase 2 of CPEC, agriculture sector is going to be very important factors in that as well. So the way that we can probably leverage the 70-year diplomatic relationship is that if we can, this is exploring of the ideas, if we can make Pakistan cherry like ambassador of agriculture ambassador between China and Pakistan for the promoting the agricultural collaboration. I think that can be one of the idea. The other thing is that for Chinese people as a general, I'm Chinese, I think we, from a cultural perspective, we always make food associated with a lot of festivals. Let's say Spring Festival or whichever festival, it is always associated with different kind of foods. So if we can also make a very good marketing exposure to the Chinese consumers for the Pakistan cherry, I think that can also work well.
Like
in
Christmas
terms of setting
is apples, right?
Yes, yes.
We can have something similar for
yes,
cherries.
yes, yes. And I think that will be able to create the brand in people's mind. Let's say you mentioned the idea of Pakistan cherry as a brand among people's mind.
Well, do you have an idea?
Ms. Cheng's point of view, the only important thing is the Chinese people, I know like in past 16, 17 years, they love to use the Pakistani products. The only thing that we need to do is creating the awareness and a very good marketing, a strong marketing, to tell them, the people, the Chinese people, that our products are here. In order to do that, we might invite some of the small communities to just join some kind of a seminars in the embassies and some kind of exhibitions, and give them a free sample just to taste it. Just put on a plate and just any visitors come in and just have a taste. So just once they develop the taste, they know the product is in the market, they immediately go and buy the product. If I want to bring my company back to Pakistan and should have one single window operation to just complete all those procedures and the documentations, that is going to be a very, very easy way.
We think that with the enhanced bilateral trade increase, because associated with CPEC Phase 2, there are going to be some industrial parks.
Pakistani telecommunication was really a huge market in Pakistan.
However, we probably need to set up kind of a China investment desk, some kind of things.
You're watching the Belt and Road Face to Face, and we are about to enter the second part of our program, Figure. Foreign direct investment in Pakistan fell 23.8% to $415.7 million in the first quarter of fiscal year 2021, from $545.5 million in the same period last fiscal year, according to data released by the State Bank of Pakistan. Investment from China doubled from the previous fiscal year, however, reaching $103.6 million in the first quarter of fiscal 2021, compared with $55.4 million in the same period last year. Over the past few years, China has been the biggest investor for Pakistan. The key sectors attracting FDI in the first quarter of fiscal 2021 were electric power at $113.3 million versus $32.3 million last year in the same fiscal period, and financial sector, as in banking, accounted for $102.5 million, up from $30.7 million in the same period last year. Oil and gas exploration went up to $67.2 million, up from $39.8 million, and the biggest drop in the foreign investment over the same period was in communication sector, which fell to $37.5 million from $307.4 million last year. So why did the telecommunication FDI fall in Pakistan, and is Pakistan's telecommunication market less attractive to foreign investment? First, Dr. Sajid, I will come to you with this puzzling query.
Because in Pakistan there are already 5 telecommunication companies, and they have a huge competition. Chinese Zong company is also there, which is called China Mobile, which is very famous now. And they transferred their technology from China to Pakistan, which is a very, very competitive market. The people still, they have a choices. I mean, 5 companies, a huge company competitiveness. And the companies, they are trying, and they're spending millions of rupees every year on the market and compete each other to get the more market share. But unfortunately, in the recent years, the problems that they are facing about like kind of like an energy crisis, for example, shortage of electricity and gas, and shortage of like a kind of infrastructure of those establishing their towers and all these kind of stuff. And to some extent for the new investors, that's a bit difficult for them to complete all kind of those documentations. So I think the government should work in those areas where they can make an easy documentation for the FDI. So if I want to bring my company back to Pakistan, and should have a one single window operation to just complete all those procedures and the documentations, that is going to be a very, very easy way. But on the other side, if you look at it, people love to, and the political crisis and sometimes the security issues, of course, but now in the recent years, like 2-3 years, the Pakistan Army and the government itself, the agencies of Pakistan, they're playing a very important role in order to stabilize the economic conditions in Pakistan. And with the vision of the Imran Khan itself, when he addressed to the rest of the world, like in the UN, for example, whether it's one on, and he openly said that the Pakistan is a safe country for not only for the tourism and for the investment point of view. So that's why lots of other companies, they met with different ministers and the Prime Minister itself, and lots of Chinese delegation they visited in the recent time, and they wanted to invest in Pakistan. So I'm pretty much optimistic, and I hope that these things will be stabilized in very few time. Pakistani telecommunication was really a huge market in Pakistan, and it's almost like around 6th or 7th number in the world, number of users of mobile phones, and it's very, very cheap.
Increasing
in fact.
with time as well.
It's increasing, of course, and it's
true.
very cheap because of the company's competitiveness. And we being as the customers, we're getting the advantage of that.
But the banking sector is thriving. It's gone up 3 times since last year. What is the reason behind it? I mean, are the same challenges applicable in terms of processes, or there are other reasons behind this spike?
I think when we look at the regulatory regime and the banking sector in Pakistan, it has been a relatively stable kind of in attracting the investment. I do think that for banking sector, or maybe we expand a little bit to the financial sector, that one of the area that we can look at that just strictly into between China and Pakistan, that the banks used to work traditional on correspondent banking relationships.
Okay.
Now I do think that with the enhanced bilateral trade increase, because associated with CPEC Phase 2, there are going to be some industrial parks being set up in Pakistan, and that's where the CPEC Phase 1, everybody knows that it focuses on infrastructure related, power stations, road, bridges, ports, and that's why when you look at FDIs from China to Pakistan, those are big numbers because those are big projects.
Yeah.
Now, gradually, when you have all this infrastructure set up, you will be able to shift into like when you have all these connectivities, and naturally, industrial collaboration should become the priority and trade related.
Okay.
I think banks as the intermediaries there to support the industries will also need to shift a little bit of mind at how do we cater for the actual needs, financial needs arising from such opportunities.
And what are those needs, if you can elaborate?
For
a bit
example,
on that
with the Chinese banks, we traditionally been working on the correspondent banking relationships for the settlement. However, now I think we really need to look at areas of capital market collaborations, and also syndicate. Let's, for example, some of the project financing, and also the fintech. It's going to be a very important area.
So, Ms. Chung, for you, how do you think we can further ease the process of cooperating?
The way that I would look at to enhance the collaboration between the two countries is that, one, we need to develop a right strategy as how to attract Chinese investment into Pakistan. CPEC Phase 1 is about the government-to-government infrastructure-related projects, the big projects. When you move to the CPEC Phase 2, these are the opportunity, the timings that private sector companies from China, B2B, they would actually look at the opportunities. So they think from a pure commercial perspective. So I think whatever the concessions, whatever the policies from Pakistan will have to be made according to those actual requirements and needs.
It needs to be attractive.
It attractive. And I would also suggest that in terms of, because when Chinese private sector companies, the way that they do business in China is that they will have one window support wherever they want to do investment in other provinces within China. I would not say that in Pakistan we should copy paste each and everything Chinese government is doing. There has to be a unique national status. However, we probably need to set up kind of a China investment desk, some kind of things. The diplomatic mission to some extent can play that role. But the way that we should try to understand their requirements and come up with the solutions. The third thing obviously would come that the way that how banks should actually step in and give the right guidance.
The Chinese comment that wherever there is a small poor area, they just try to develop those areas. First of all, they need infrastructure.
For the poor population, China has a very well-defined mechanism to identify which are the poor population. There are different standards.
But what we need to do is we need to minimize the gap between the rich and the poor people.
And within a family, if one person can get proper education, and that can actually change the life of the entire family.
You are watching the Belt and Road Face to Face, and we're about to enter the third part of our program, culture. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan said in a video address to the 75th United Nations General Assembly on 24th September that the current government has pledged to reduce the poverty rate to 19% by 2023. From the current 24.3%, and reiterated its commitment to build Pakistan into an Islamic welfare state through inclusive, balanced growth and economic modernization. Imran Khan also said that the COVID-19 outbreak has had a huge impact on all people, especially the poor. Despite the financial constraints, the Pakistani government has provided $1.25 billion in emergency assistance to 15 million families of the country, benefiting more than 100 million people. Pakistan is also currently implementing a multi-tiered poverty reduction program, which is the largest in Pakistan's history so far. So, what has impressed you most about China's poverty alleviation work, Dr. Sajid?
In Pakistan, it's a very big issue. In fact, around 24.3% of population is still under normal conditions that they need the basic necessities of life.
Yeah.
And if we compare this with Chinese poverty alleviation, according to the World Bank's report, the China's poverty alleviation rising among the poor earnings or implementing of the Chinese labor have been increasing a lot. And now in 2019, only 0.6% rural residents in China are living in extreme poverty things. 0.6% and 24.3% is a big gap between China and Pakistan. So I think we should learn these kind of things, that how in a developed economy and how the developing economy can overcome these problems in order to same as Pakistani Imran Khan's program, he launched lots of programs to giving a small amount of the loans for the small communities and individuals to start up their own businesses. And I think the China policies are very effective into those cases. We should learn, the Pakistani government should learn about these points. I'm not saying that we need to implement all of those policies in Pakistan in order to remove the poverty alleviation, but at least some of them we can learn from them, and the things that we can implement very clearly and easily, that's an important thing. Besides this, the Chinese government, that wherever there is a small poor area, they just try to develop those areas. First of all, they need infrastructure. They have roads, they have trains, they have airports, they have dry ports or seaports, whatever possible. And automatically the people's, the living economy styles and the living condition styles improved a lot. And they invested, they try to invest and give rebates to the foreign investors to just go and develop those small areas. So automatically those areas developed.
Definitely. And Ms. Chung, it wasn't that long ago that China was China also faced a
Yes.
poverty problem.
Yes.
And even now, I mean, the priority is again to alleviate, improve, continuously improve the quality of lives of the people. So I first want to ask you, what was the decisive policy? Or if you could talk about a few things that you probably observed in your country that made the big difference.
That one of the success that China was able to achieve, whatever that we're able to stand now as of today, is that consistency of the policy. I think that's important, and obviously the government need to come forward with that and hold it very solidly that should be, whatever policy being made on that, after proper planning, should be consistent. The second thing is that once you make some planning, you need to have very detailed implementation details of those planning to enable that how, whatever you want to achieve, how do you get there? The first question is that what you want to achieve. Second is how do you make sure that you can get to that point? I think China has some experience to share in that, from that perspective. And some of the examples I can quote you is that for the poor population, China has a very well-defined mechanism to identify which are the poor population. There are different standards. And China is a big country. Obviously, depending on which area you're living, there are different numbers being allocated to each and every geographic locations. And the
Or in a way, measuring the
yes,
poverty index.
Yes, there's a way to identify, the entire mechanism actually caters for the way to identify. Once you identify, then you come forward with the solution as how to support them. The example that Dr. Sajid quoted, the infrastructure building is one of them. And there are other associated measures too. Then it also has to be monitored on a very dynamic basis.
Yeah, so monitoring the progress. I mean, one thing is the idea, the other is identifying the physical, the manifestation of that, and then to be flexible.
Yes.
To see how much progress you've made. Dr. Sajid, why is it that we don't have under CPEC? You know, in 2018, even poverty alleviation became a priority. And actually, Prime Minister Imran Khan, no matter where he is, if he's in Beijing or Washington, he will talk about China as an example for Pakistan.
True. So unfortunately, right from the beginning, I'm talking about since 1947.
Okay.
we got such kind of systems in the government that the government comes like few years, 5 years plan, and we don't have the planned economies.
Okay.
What we need is we need a sustainable income source. People who are rich in our country, they're so much rich. The people who are poor, they're very poor.
In many countries.
I mean, in many countries, okay. But what we need to do is we need to minimize the gap between the rich and the poor people. We need a capability to work. People, they are willing to work. We need to create them the opportunities. Imran Khan said that 5 million housing project. It's a huge project. It's being started. Many people said, oh, where are those houses? They are still under construction. I watched those videos in the social platforms. Imagine the 5 million project is a huge project. How many industries are being involved into the infrastructure and as well as the manufacturing of those materials and all this kind of stuff? And how many people are being benefited of those industries related to the 5 million houses project? What we need is we need a targeted employment programs, as we needed a small scale, medium scale and a large scale. Depends on the regions. We need a health reforms and those kind of things. The poor conditions in the villages, we don't have
stunted growth is a big problem as well.
Go in interior part of Sindh, go in interior part of Punjab, you can see the people sometimes they don't have a proper basic facilities. We need to create a small micro generation systems. Implementation of the institutional reforms. We need to strong those small institutions, that how they can build, how they can produce what they are producing and how they can accommodate. Strengthening the local government institutions. Local governments playing a very vital role. Provisional and then the local communities. And the last one, not the least, go for the multi-testing projects and how multi-targeting projects, that we make a small project targeting for a few months, years, and then go for the next one.
I think these are very valuable suggestions, and if you have any last word,
I think
Chen.
just to add upon what Dr. Sajid was saying, that when we look at the reason, the basic root cause of causing poverty, it's also important to avoid whatever the reasons there. For example, disease. For example, education. If you don't give the proper education right to people, and a lot of poverty situations are actually associated with illiteracy. So if education can be put, into the proper priority, then a key factor. I think globally people reckon that even within a family, if one person can get proper education, and that can actually change the life of the entire family.
With that, thank you so much. Thank you to our guests, and thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.